Good morning, guys. Good morning. How are you guys? So a little bit of an overnight gap down. Meta got absolutely smoked on her, and we are hanging out right at the 200 simple moving average. Are there any stocks in which you are keen to buy breakouts on falling NASDAQ? No, I talk about this all the time. Um, for one, buying breakouts in this environment, while some have been working, for the most part, I don't want to be buying breakouts. I prefer pullbacks to ascending moving averages at the moment. And then I normally tell everybody this: if you're going to be buying stocks, make sure that you're buying them when the market is going up, not when the market is going down. Right? Like it's hard to even gain short-term traction, which is what you need for the stock to push away from your average when the market's going down, especially tech-related stuff. I actually shorted Oklo yesterday, Aaron, and they did a offering this morning. So I shorted as this thing started to come back down 146 bucks. Yeah, those are my thoughts on Oklo. I mean, I've been talking about shorts on the speculative stocks that had come down pretty sharply, and then you just get a multi-day rebound, and then those are the names that you would be shorting. I am short Rigetti, Iron, and Oklo. That's not totally true, Scott. Again, what are you focused on and where are you buying it? Because if you're going to tell me that breakout buying hasn't been working, but somebody bought, AVGO at 360 bucks, well, then you're wrong because this is a breakout. How much further does it go? Is it just a little small inside day before continuing higher? If I showed you CrowdStrike and told you your best entry, which was on the watch list, was at 506 bucks, you're going to tell me that that's not a 10% move and a breakout? Of course it is. So you can't say breakout buying has not worked. Ultimately, what are you buying and how are you holding it? How are you trading it? You can't say it hasn't worked because it has. It's just been these last few days have been a little trickier because, it's like a select handful of stocks that are working really well and not, and not everything, right? In a super great environment, everything is working. But in this environment, not everything is working. Do I include quantitative data in your trading decision? No, I don't include any quantitative data. I've just been trading long enough to know when things work well and when things don't, and I miss a lot of trades still. And also, again, you can't say breakouts haven't been working because, again, NVIDIA I had on the watch list on this day here, and it was going to be taking out 1022's high, right? You can't say that didn't work. That's a 15% move. Yeah, Meta flirting with the 200-day. WDC is not a high volume close setup. I mean, not in my opinion anyway. Also, it's not on any earnings. The only reason WDC's up is because STX posted earnings. Do I ever buy stocks on the close? Yes, sometimes, but I don't have any. I guess TSM was one, but it's not really working. I bought this near the close, not on the close, but near the close. Yeah, iron is nice. I shorted this thing. I have a $66 average roughly. So as soon as we started to break back in prior day high, I shorted it right back through here, and then I shorted it right down here. I have I'll tell you in a second. Two spots I shorted it. $66, $65, and then at 62.40 right here against green to red. So I have a 64.61 at the moment on iron. And yeah, steady little fade. You know, this one reminded me a whole lot of, and I talked about this, I've been talking about it, even in here, a lot of AEVA, right? You get this, it's like almost identical, but obviously different groups. So you get the peak off highs and you get a 35% down move. Then you get a rally, and that's about a 30% move higher. And then, it starts to really break down from there. I don't know that IREN will play out the exact same way, but it's very similar. You get the 35% down move, then you get a 39% rally, and then you start to break down from there. I don't know about breakout retests. I think, when you guys look at the market, does any part of you guys feel like the market needs a little bit of a breather? Well, it does for me too. So, bless you. It feels like the market needs a little bit of a breather for me. So, I don't want to get too aggressive while the market's coming down. Right? I would rather, not be the first one back in the pool. Yeah, Palantir breakout technically worked perfectly yesterday. That 190, and really it was like that $190 level. And I even thought that this one was actually better to be bought on 1024, about 183. And that's a 10% move. How do I manage overnight gap risk? With proper position sizing and making sure I've got cushion on my new positions to be able to hold it overnight. How long do I live stream on Discord each day? Sometimes until the trading day is over. And sometimes I sit and watch earnings as well. There are times when, I do get off my screen a little early, but basically all day. No, STC. This thing trades 13 million bucks a day. And this price action is terrible. I mean, look at what this thing has been doing for the better part of a year. Right? It's kind of ugly. Yeah, Open Door, the Eric Jackson pump. I don't really like this name. It's all right, but SATS looks beautiful, but it already made such a big move up. It's not really doing anything here anymore. The volatility has just died. Are there areas in the market that don't need a breather? Maybe some oil and gas stocks. I don't know if they're going to go higher, but it could be like the XLE is ready to start going higher. I'm not sure. You've got some names in there that were already showing some strength, like Dino, right? Got to move up, went sideways and digested, move up, went sideways and digested, and move up, went sideways and digested, move up, sideways and digesting. Do we continue higher? MPC is another one of those. This one looks like it might be trying to go higher. VLO recently on earnings, nice little move out, then teeny tiny little bull flag here. Does this one try to go higher? What else? PARR, another oiler. Look, this just made a new high yesterday. Nice little breakout on 1022. Now a teeny tiny little bull flag. We'll see if this is trying to go higher. But yeah, I mean, I don't know. It could be some of those names, but I'm not sure. Yeah, I mean, AEVA. I don't know that I would short this down here, but yeah. Some people would look at this like just a, very big bear flag. Who knows? STX, yeah, massive move. This could be a high volume close setup, but I'm going to leave it alone. I'm not buying stocks when the market's going lower. Do I read messages on Twitch? Yeah. Is that the question, though? I do. As long as they come in while I'm streaming. My thoughts on AVAV? Not bad. Aerospace and defense looks fine. I didn't include this one on last night's watch list video, and the reason is we're still a little too extended from the 50 simple moving average for me to want to do anything. Right? Rocket Lab just a little bit cleaner. But even this one, I needed to take out yesterday's highs for me to be interested, and we're kind of pushing lower at the moment. So yeah, man, is Meta really below the 200 simple? Holy shit, we are. CRDO, I thought was fine yesterday, but I didn't want to chase this gap up. I wanted to buy it over these little 3-day pivot, like just over this little pivot here. And I thought 163 looked good, but I had to be buying it through 163. And then really the second issue that I had with it was I was not okay buying anything going into FOMC. GDX as a long maybe makes some sense, but it's got to get going here. It's got to get going. Yeah, MDB looks fine. This one was actually on my last night's watch list video. Yeah, Fresh, that's correct. If I'm on the desk, I'm streaming. And it's a community of like 400 people and sharing ideas. I share my nightly watch list video, share my market thoughts in real time. I share all trade ideas that I take. Would I be shorting QQQ? You can. I'm not going to. I'm already short a few names, right? I'm short Rigetti, Iron, and Oklo. I don't really need more shorts on. So that, and I'm just managing my longs that I have. So Campo, thank you for being there, brother. Much appreciated. No, Ivan, you got to be aware of when a stock has earnings, and today is the day for Amazon. So if you're thinking about buying this off the 50-day today and you don't recognize that they've got earnings, you can't buy Amazon or Apple today. You have to leave them alone. Let them report earnings or get meted. Do you want to be meted? If that happens, then you're going to have to go live in the metaverse because, that's how you end up losing your house. I'm teasing though, but, honestly, don't be buying stocks just before earnings. Like you could look at Google and be like, oh man, I knew I should have bought it before earnings. But then you look at Meta and be like, holy shit, I'm glad I don't buy stocks before earnings. So, you don't want to do that because you don't know what the reaction is going to be. And sometimes it just seems like, you'll buy the wrong one. And yeah, you got to be on top of your earnings. If you don't know when a stock's earnings are, how are you comfortably trading it, Ivan? Unless you're day trading. But if you're a swing trader, you have to know when a stock has earnings. If you don't know, you're asking for trouble. Is Meta a buy today? No. No, Meta's not a buy today. Just let the institutions buy Meta back up instead of you assuming you know where the bottom is. Right? How do you know that Meta, okay, for example, and let me just throw this out there. Meta looks fine. Meta's hanging up above the 200. And then all of a sudden we gap down. We're all the way against the 200. And now we're technically a little bit lower. How do you guys know that Meta doesn't play out like DEC a few quarters ago, where DEC is perfectly fine? It has a really big gap down. It comes all the way down to the 200 on a pickup in volume. And then all of a sudden, this is just what happens with it. Like, how do you guys know that this isn't what happens with Meta? Right, Leo, you don't. You don't know that that's not what happens. So wouldn't you rather say to yourself, okay, look at what they did to VRT, right? Where VRT gets, whacked on earnings, and then instantly it bounces off the 20, and then the next day it's straight back up, right? That's what you want to see. And then that gives you confidence that, yep, Meta's not actually trying to go lower. Meta's trying to bounce. Or how do you know Meta can't pull an IBM, right? You wake up, it's effectively gapping down overnight, and then first thing in the morning, it's just getting bought up. The thing is you don't know, and you don't know like I don't know. So let it happen. Let it build you a technical setup. Let it be proven to you that it is not trying to go lower, and then you come in and buy it. Right? This whole thing of like, I need to have the lowest price. So if it starts to bounce at the 200, well, the reality is we're now below the 200. So, if you want to buy it as it's going back through the 200, okay, fine. And then you risk off the lows. But I'm not trying to step in front of that. I'll tell you. How much time did it take me to become profitable? I started as a day trader and it took me, 2 months. I also started trading in 2020. So, I just started scalping, right? And it's not very difficult in the hottest market ever to be a scalper and buy dips off prior levels of resistance. I've talked about that in plenty of interviews that I've done. I got really lucky in the environment that I started, and I crushed it in 2020 and 21. And then in, ends of 21, I started to become a swing trader. 22, that's when I started to learn from Mark Minervini. And, I did get my butt kicked a little bit in 22, but nowhere near bad enough to want to quit. And then ends of 22, 23, 24, and now 25 have just been, honestly, it feels like a walk in the park. This market's been not that difficult and only getting easier, it feels like. Obviously, because you understand more and because the market's been really friendly. Opinion on Tesla? Well, I own it, and I don't really see anything to do with it here until we can take out this inside day's high at the very least. 467 probably. Yeah, Iron bleeding. Yeah, nicely too. Iron, Oklo, Rigetti. I mean, my shorts are paying very, very well. And Iron's a full position for me. Rigetti and Oklo, not so much. Those are both a little bit smaller, but yeah. Iron is it's actually next to Tesla. It's my biggest position in my portfolio. So TD Ameritrade, and that's actually how I got kicked off from their brokerage. Yeah, we're so conditioned to find good value. You know what's good value? The stocks that go down the least when the market goes down a bunch, right? That's good value because then you're buying the strongest stocks in the market. Well, MP is not rising in a falling market. MP is bouncing because it's gotten its ass kicked so hard. Yeah, It really depends how the market is acting. MSTR, yeah, man, this thing kind of hurts me because I had it perfectly, and then I got stopped out because my timing was just a little off. I shorted this on 9/18, did not cover any of the $300 washout, and then I didn't reshort it on 10/7. But you're talking about a $80 move by now. 270. Will not be too surprised to see this thing at 240. It looks horrendous. It looks really, really bad. How many charts does someone have in their model book? I don't know. I've got like 140, I think, or something in mine. And I made mine by hand. Laminated the pages, hole punched them, put them in a binder. It's not even like some digital, but it's like a physical book that I made. How are I selecting the stocks when I was scalping back then? Stocks that were on my gap up scanner. So I used to use trade ideas, and just the stocks that would be gapping up on news. I would kind of read through the news. I would plot my levels. They would have to be trading, high relative volume, and those were the ones that I would be going after. What made me want to short iron when it was above all key moving averages? I just explained it. I thought it looked a lot like AEVA. Go back and study AEVA and how this thing fell and then how it bounced. And I've made mention of this before. I said it in the Discord. I've said it in here. I've said it to everybody. I think your Oklos, your Rigetti, your IONQ, your Iron, your MP, your CRML, and your UAMY. I believe that all of those speculative stocks have topped for the year, right? So it's just then a matter of digging through your brain and saying, have I seen this before? And the reason that I covered Rigetti last week at 35 was because I thought we would be due for an oversold rally, which we got, and then I reshorted at 42.5. And then I thought that Iron would give a multi-day bounce because I didn't have a short, and I would be able to short it. And it played out exactly the same, very similar to this AEVA. You make a move down after a very, very large, massive move up, right? And then all of a sudden you kind of wash out 30%. You give a bounce just over 30%, and then you start to roll over, right? You look for that 3-4 day bounce. And for me, that's a good opportunity to reshort, right? You have a lot of people chasing this, thinking that this thing is going to go to 75, 80, 85, 90, 100, which it's like, okay, I was bullish on Iron down here, okay, at $10. I was bullish on HUT at 18, right? I'm not bullish on this crap up here without like way bigger bases. And even this one, right? Just like the other ones, you wash out, you try to reclaim. A lot of people get stopped out. A lot of bozos put the trade right back on, thinking this thing is going to go to 70 to 80 to 90 to 100. And it's like that doesn't really happen without a longer, cleaner, sideways base. So, you get a lot of people just FOMOing right back into these things as if this is some kind of a clean setup, which it's not. So, yeah. My favorite kind of short setup, probably a double top short sale, is the easiest to get involved in. A break of a key moving average is fine. A rejection of a key moving average is also one of my favorites. Very, very easy to trade, right? So this was like a very easy to get short on this day, even though it was like rallying up into that level. And then also a break of a key moving average. Also, I like a lot. What do you mean I got kicked off because I was scalping too many? I was taking too many market orders, and they kicked me off for toxic order flow, they called it. SANM, Sanmina. I'm assuming they have earnings soon, right? I don't know. Let them report first. Yeah, I think Tesla looks, really good still, but obviously can't just sit there and add to it when the market's fading. I don't really focus on the VIX. I don't really care about the volatility index in any way. Would I not trade oil stock? Well, no, oil stocks have nothing to do with the QQQ. I would be looking at crude oil futures backslash CL, and then the XLE or the XOP. They're so beaten up that them bouncing is just part of the normal price action process. I mean, I don't know that, these, like, I don't look at MP or CRML and think to myself that this thing's going to V-shape recover into highs. So, maybe like a little 1 or 2 day trade or something, and then you're done with it. Yeah, you don't really know with oops. You have to have the stock on your radar and know that that's something that you're looking for as a potential for something to happen. Like markets gapping down, and then you're looking for that reversal. You just don't know that you just don't know that they're going to happen because you can't scan for them the night before. Yeah, that's a good point. You almost have to just be ready for it because it's a stock you've been watching. I don't know that Coors is the one that I would short. Do I have some interest in SanDisk short at some point? Yeah, maybe, just not here. I've already got plenty of short exposure on. More than 20% of my account is short, roughly. Yeah, I would leave Lumen alone. When stock has earnings, you just don't want to gamble into earnings. Um, it's tough to say. These things haven't really bounced any. I'm not sure if they are still good shorts here. Maybe. I don't have a account for long term positions. I don't do long term investing. I can make more money turning my money over swing trading than people do investing. If I only have like a 2% cushion going into earnings, I probably wouldn't hold it. Like 8 to 10% cushion. Yeah, I mean, depends if I'm trimmed on it too. You can't. You just a lot of stocks pop up for the day and then fade. A false breakout. How do you avoid being caught by that? You can't. The only thing you can do is adjust your position sizing because you're recognizing that it's happening. And the other thing that you can do is, you notice that that's happening and you size down and you take less trades, right? That's how you don't get caught by that. Take less trades until the market's a little bit easier. No, I'm not concerned because I still have shares from a whole lot lower, and any of my ads that I took a few days ago have a low of day stop at this 451. So if this thing's going to go and take out, 451 and a half, I will be cutting my ads. So I'm not really concerned about that at all. Yeah, I mentioned MP already. This one could bounce maybe for a couple days, but I'm not looking at MP as a potential swing trade here because like it's not set up to actually go higher. It's set up for just a potential multi-day bounce, right? You get your ass kicked like this after making a really, really big move, right? At best, this thing just bounces, right? Maybe it bounces to like 75 or something, like best case scenario. But If it decides to show a little bit more strength and then go sideways and tighten up and then start to undergo accumulation and then start to show relative strength, meaning when the market's going down, this thing is still going up, then all of a sudden you could, you might think you're onto something. Yeah. So one of the things that you really want to do is you want to know a stock's average daily range. So it's a good question. You hear me talk about not taking this after it's moved, up more almost as much as its average daily range. So what I mean by that is if a stock moves 4% per day on average over the last 20 days, I don't buy the stock if it's already up 3.8, 3.5% or more for the day. Because if I buy it there, there's just probably not a lot of meat left on the bone, right? So I avoid taking that as a breakout. That's like a really good rule of thumb. And one of the ways that you evaluate it is, well, I just have a little tool here that tells me effectively it's 5-day ADR or it's 20-day ADR and what it's moved today relative to what it usually moves. So that's important. And then you're basically just measuring distance from the low of the day to where price is currently at when it's breaking out, right? If it moves 4% per day, but it's only up 2%, then I can take it because I know that on average it can move 4%. So it could still move 2% away from my average. Thoughts on NVTS? There's no real setup here yet. It's pretty extended from the 50 simple moving average. You'd basically be buying this thing like 5 times ATR from the 50. So, typically until like a left side low is how I define my take profits on a short. I look at it fairly similar. So like 3 to 5 days, I'll cover some and then I'll just continue to trail a moving average. Or there are times when like it's made a big enough move. Like if I catch like a 25, 30% move in like 3 days, I'll just kill it, right? You can only catch so much downside on a short. And then I'll like relook for it if it gives a pop. Yeah, smaller account can do that. I can't really. I mean, there are times that I can, like if I'm trading, something super liquid, but most of the time I just don't really trade post and pre-market. Not enough liquidity there. If I have to because I got to get out, then I'll do it. But what's my average gain in percentage on your long wins? This is a great question. I'm not sure. But normally, I'm getting something like I want to say I'm making like maybe $4 or $5 for every buck I lose. So my profit factor is like north of 4. I create a watch list every single evening. I have like a bigger watch list, like a universal watch list where I put like all of the stocks that I think are quality in a bigger watch list and I can just scan through those. And then like as new stocks pop up on my radar, I'll like throw them in there. And then like I'll go through that watch list every single night to like make my ready list, like my list that's potentially actionable, for the next day. Yeah, well, Rocket Lab I own, there's nothing to do with it right now until it can take out, a prior day high. Any relatively weak tickers you're eyeing? Yeah, MSTR was one of them. Well, Oklo with the offering, any pops on Oklo, I'll be keeping an eye on that. Any pops on Quantum, I'll probably be keeping an eye on those. Same thing with Iron, names that I'm already short, right? It's just easier when you've got a really nice, healthy average. That if stocks want to go down, they'll go and they'll hit a declining moving average or they'll hit a prior day low and then they'll roll over some more. So probably stocks that I already have. Yeah, this is like a rare earth / uranium stock. Yeah, it's fine. It's good, but not great. How would I swing CRML? I wouldn't. Stocks that like something like when something like this happens to a stock where it goes from 32 to 12, it was a real massive piece of shit to begin with, right? So when they do this, until it builds like this extremely long base, right? I leave it alone. Yeah, it could have a bounce and it could probably bounce to, I don't know, $15 or something like that. But this isn't like some name that I would swing. Like CRML, in order for it to ever go higher, it will have to do like, some SOU where you get like this big move, it gives back most of its profits, and then it just bases for months on end, right? Then it can go higher. And this was like a base, I don't know, from peak to when it broke out again was like from March all the way to November. So I don't even know what that is, like 7 months basically. Can I give an example of how I size positions based on how fast a stock moves? Can I give an example? Yes. So MAGS, because it's super slow and it moves 1.5% per day, I was looking to get a 20% position in this. Unfortunately, I only got myself into a 10% position, but the ideal would have been 20%. And then this is the move you catch, right? Okay, great. And then on the flip side of that, you've got something like Oklo when I bought it, right? And although I could have taken more, but because I bought CCJ, I only took a 5% position right here. And then this is the move that you catch, right? But this one moves 12% per day. MAGS moves 1.5% per day. So ideally, let's just say Oklo is a 10% position because had I not bought CCJ, that's what I would have put into Oklo. And MAGS, I just couldn't find a way to get more size on because it just wasn't really pushing that day that I bought it. But, roughly 20% would have been pretty good in something like MAGS. Yeah, that's fine. I don't mind Nick's idea about buying pullbacks to 200 MAs if it's flattening. I don't know about it has to be an ascending 200, but if we're talking about meta still, I'm not looking to buy the weakness. Could it bounce? Yes, it probably can, but I don't go looking for the lows in stocks when they're getting crushed on earnings. You know what makes NBIS fairly easy? And I don't know that I would be buying this here, right back to the 20-day. But you know what makes NBIS pretty easy? You also can put your eyes on CoreWeave. You can put your eyes on Oracle. Really, CoreWeave and NBIS will move together. So, yeah, tech. Yeah, not terrible. It's gotta take out, this $44.5, $45 range. Thoughts on home builders? They look terrible. Who do I suggest learning to short from? Depends your time frame. If you like shorter time frame, then I would say Nate from IU is awesome. If you like to swing short like I do, then Gil Morales. Yeah, Arun, I thought about doing something like this for Black Friday, so be on the lookout possibly in a month. I don't have any of that right now because my fear is that you just get way too many people in the room at one time. So that's why I don't do it. Why do swing traders prefer to trade 10% of their account for a position instead of risking 1%? Because risking 1% actually is a lot, right? There are periods, if you're a swing trader, where you will have, 10, 12, 15 losses in a row. And that is fairly normal, right? I know you might be like, wait, what? But it's true. Like even myself in October, I had a period where I lost 12 trades in a row, but I made that all back on one short, right? In Rigetti, or one short in UAMY, or one short in Nugget. So I made those 12 trades back in just one trade. And that's also personally why If you just risk 1% per trade, that's a lot. And by the way, if you're trading like off of a very tight level, like let's say you're buying a bounce off the 50-day and you've only got 2% risk, like literally 2% risk to your stop level, you have to take 50% of your portfolio in an individual stock to get 1% risk. Like that is a huge amount of your money in one stock that may or may not do anything. So, that's just not the way for me to do 1% risk every single time. Right? That's kind of a lot, actually. And then you don't want to go through that period where you've got 10, 12 losing trades in a row. And then now all of a sudden you got to have a 20% gain in order to make that 12% loss back in your portfolio. And, that could take you 2 months to overcome. So I still have half my Dell position and I sold it perfectly. So I sold some right into this strength and then right a little bit more into this weakness. And then that's it, right against this left side peak. And then now we rolled over all day yesterday and now we're gapping down a little bit more, but I could care less because I'm already out half. Yes, I short shares. And no, I'm not afraid of gap ups because I size properly. Guys, Mike, you must have just showed up, brother. But yes, I'm short Iron, Oklo, and Rigetti. And Iron and Rigetti I've had for several days. Oklo I shorted yesterday. My biggest streak of losses and wins, how often does this happen? I think like as a swing trader, my biggest streak of losses is 12, I think. I want to say, and it just happened this October, but it was really not a big deal because I was sized properly. I maybe have had something longer. I'd have to like really go back and look at my stats, but 12, if I'm not mistaken, at least during this bull run since April. And my longest win streak of winning trades in a row, I want to say was 7. And that will pay for 100 losses in a row. Those 7 wins will pay for 100 losses in a row. I haven't had a 10% drawdown from equity highs in over 2 years. If I'm counting unrealized gains, then yeah, I've had, 8, 10, 12% pullbacks, but from equity highs. But once I like lock up some gains, I don't ever think about my unrealized gains. I only look at my realized portfolio, realized equity. I haven't had a 10% drawdown. Like even when I had those 12 losses in a row, I lost 1.5%. 1.5% of my portfolio on 12 losses in a row. I even posted it. I can make another post of it later on X or something, but yeah, 1.5% equity give back. And I made all that money back on one Rigetti short. Right. And then I made way more than that Rigetti short on my Nugget short. And then I made more on my UAMY short. So it's like, okay, so you see what happens? Those 2 other trades, UAMY and Nugget, can pay for another 25 losses. No, not too. I don't limit myself too much, but I typically can only find myself in, 2, 3 stocks in the same group anyway. Do I utilize AI in your trading in any way? No. Yeah, actually, I take that back. It makes my thumbnails. It makes thumbnails. Where did I learn my entry process? From studying greats before me. Bill O'Neill, Mark Minervini, Christian Koulamagi, Dan Zanger, Pat Walker, watching pretty much any and everybody that's had, anybody who's had, 10 plus, 12 plus years of experience. and they've survived several market cycles. Are you planning to hold the positions that you are down in pre-market when the market is open? Well, I'm technically not down in any of my long positions in pre-market, right? Like even my TSM that I bought at 300, it's at 301.50. So I'm still green on this position, right? ARC, even though it's down, I own it from 59 bucks, right? So like just because it's pulled back doesn't mean that ARC is doing anything wrong. Like I've held through all of this. I've held through all of this. You don't think I'm going to hold through this? So long as it's above the 50 simple moving average, there's nothing for me to do. How do you lose so little on 12 straight trades? Yeah, because when I've got a 5% position and my stop is 3%, see what I'm saying? I'm losing 0.15. When my position size is 8%, but it's got 3% risk, I lose 0.24 or whatever it is. Right. So it's like very, very small. Even other ones where it's like I'm cutting them, like it's a losing trade, but it ended up just stopping me out at flat plus maybe a little bit of slippage, right? Where it worked for a few days and then it just didn't work. And then I got out of it and you get a couple of flat trades. Those are still losses, but they're effectively flat, like losing 0.00, like nothing. They're flat. It's like making $0 or losing $0, even though I still lost a couple bucks. No, shorting is not important at all for swing trading, but it gives me something to do, and I like making money in all markets. I don't care if things are going up or down. Do you adjust risk per trade during major loss and win streaks? No, I adjust it a little bit based on if the market is coming out of a correction, I go and take 10% positions. Once the market has made a really big move up, as we've had, and it gets a little choppier and a little bit more difficult, I size down. Or as I'm not trading well. Gil Morales. He used to run a book for Bill O'Neill. Morales. He made the book Short Selling with the O'Neill Disciples. Someone told you need at least 4 monitors. They're lying to you. You don't need as many monitors as I have. I have 5. You don't need that. Like 2 or 3. I won't really do it. Like I won't really get involved in a stock more than twice in one day. When I take a position, do I let the room know? Yeah. Yeah, I let them know right away. Or I'm talking about it on live stream. Or like I'll preemptively tell people like, hey, if this happens, then I'm going to do this. If you lose so little on 12 trade, it's because you don't have any gap downs. I get caught in gap downs. Yeah, I get caught in gap, but my position sizing, that doesn't matter. The action in BABA is it's fine. It's still above the rising 50-day, but really I can't hold it below 1024's low. So if you have $10,000 account, what are your money rules as far as how much? I mean, no more than $1,500 positions, $1,500. Do I have a minimum size for swing shorting? Well, I also swing stocks that are fairly liquid and easy to borrow. So it's similar to being long, right? Normally, I don't have crazy fees. At what R is my first trim? I'm a few multiples of my risk. I don't know, at least 3 to 4 to 5, something like that. I wouldn't do anything different if I had a smaller account. I would just maybe trade names that are a little bit faster. All right, guys, I got to get my butt moving. Hopefully, you guys have an awesome trading day. I am off the desk. I'm traveling tomorrow. You guys have a great Thursday, safe Friday. Like I said, I won't be on for pre-market prep tomorrow. I will see you guys on Monday. Any questions, you guys can ask on YouTube or ask on X. I appreciate you guys as always. and I will see you guys on Monday morning. Yep. Thanks, guys. Awesome questions today.